Okay, so it's super easy to use your back fabric as your binding. The first thing you're going to do is, well, after you've quilted the quilt, you're going to fold over that back piece of fabric and tuck it underneath the quilt to make sure you're not cutting it, and then cut away that strip of binding that's left over. I leave about 1/4 of an inch because I like a little bit fuller feeling binding, but you don't need to leave that. You can just cut right along the edge of the quilt. Just careful not to cut that back fabric. So once you've cut away that batting, you're going to pull your back piece back up, and I cut mine at 1 inch. For the first time, you might, if you're not real familiar with doing binding, you might do 1.5 inches just to give you a little bit more fabric to work with. It might make the corners easier to deal with. Now you're going to snip a small portion of the fabric off on each corner. Careful not to take too much. You want it to be able to fold over, still touch your quilt top, and be covered by those corners when you make them. Then you're just going to iron each piece over. If you have basting glue, you can glue it down at that point to make it stay better. I don't have any, so I just use my little clips. You want to work with each corner, trying to make that mitered corner. You just fold each one over, and then you'll iron that piece on top of the quilt and clip it into place. So just take your time with this part. Get it lined up really well. Get it pinned however you want, or clipped or glued. Make sure you have it all lined up right. And then you will just take it and sew it down. When you're sewing it, you're just going to try to sew as close as to the edge that you can get. You want to make sure you're capturing all of it and not going off the edge onto the quilt, because you want it all secured down. This way, it just leaves a small stitch line on the back of the quilt. The straighter you go, the nicer it'll look. Make sure you have your corners in place. When I get to a corner, I back stitch up the corner when I use the back binding. I don't do that with regular binding, but when I do this, I just go up the seam and then back down each corner just to make sure they're laid down real good, because I'm so close to the edge of the binding. But otherwise, just go all the way around. Pay attention to your corners. Make sure that they're tucked in real nice and that they look good before you sew over them. And then that's it. Then the edges of your quilt are finished, and you have bound your quilt together. I have made a bougie little dog quilt. If you don't want to make one, you can always buy one in my TikTok shop. They're available on there. Okay, bye.